Have you ever wondered how a militant group like Hamas took control of Gaza? Let's rewind the clock back to the late 1980s. Amidst the First Intifada, a Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation, a new player emerged on the scene: Hamas. This Islamist political organization and militant group was formed with a clear ideology: the liberation of Palestine from Israeli occupation and the establishment of an Islamic State. Fast forward to 2006, Hamas surprised the world by winning the Palestinian legislative elections. However, their victory was not well received, especially by Fatah, the long-dominating political party in Palestine. Tensions between the two parties escalated into a near-civil war, paving the way for one of the most significant events in recent Middle Eastern history: Hamas's takeover of Gaza in 2007. The political and social conditions at the time were ripe for such a transition. The Palestinian Authority was perceived by many as corrupt and incompetent, while Hamas, despite its militant tactics, was seen as a group that could stand up to Israel. Hamas capitalized on this sentiment, asserting their dominance in Gaza. It's important to note the role of the international community during this phase. The West, led by the United States, imposed economic sanctions on the Palestinian Authority following Hamas's electoral victory, hoping to pressure Hamas to recognize Israel and renounce violence. However, these sanctions only worsened the living conditions of the Palestinians, increasing the popularity of Hamas, who was seen as the defiant resistor of these foreign pressures. The takeover wasn't a peaceful transition of power. It was a violent coup that left hundreds dead and thousands wounded. Gaza, a strip of land just 25 miles long and 7 miles wide, was now under the control of one of the most militant entities in the Middle East. Now that we understand how Hamas seized control, what happened next is even more alarming. Can you imagine living in a place where schools and hospitals double as military bases? Welcome to Gaza, a place where this unimaginable scenario is a harsh reality for many. Here, the line between civilian and military infrastructure is blurred, creating a precarious and volatile environment. The Palestinian militant group, Hamas, allegedly employs a strategy that has been a topic of heated international debate: the use of human shields. This involves placing military assets such as weapons and command centers in populated civilian areas, including schools, hospitals, and residential buildings. This strategy turns these buildings into potential targets, and their inhabitants, including innocent children, into unwilling human shields. But why would Hamas adopt such a strategy? It's a complex issue, deeply rooted in the asymmetry of the conflict. By placing military assets within populated areas, Hamas makes it incredibly difficult for its adversaries to strike without causing civilian casualties. This not only provides a degree of protection for the group's military assets, but also has potential to garner international sympathy and condemnation of their adversaries in the event of civilian casualties. However, this tactic has been widely criticized. Many argue that it's a blatant violation of international humanitarian law, which strictly prohibits the use of civilians to shield military objectives. It's a topic that has been brought to the forefront of the United Nations and other international platforms, yet it continues to be a contentious issue with no clear resolution in sight. The implications of this strategy are devastating. When schools and hospitals become military targets, the safety and welfare of the community are compromised. The lives of innocent civilians, particularly children, are put in grave danger. This is the grim reality of living in Gaza, a place where conflict is woven into the very fabric of daily life. While the world debates the ethics of war, the innocent pay the price. But what about the children? How would life be if your playground was a battlefield and your playmates were soldiers? Imagine a world where the innocence of childhood is replaced by the grim realities of war. This is the world some children in Gaza are forced to navigate. Allegedly, Hamas has been recruiting these children, robbing them of their youth, and thrusting them into a life of conflict. Their classrooms become training grounds, their books replaced by weapons. The psychological impact of this is profound. Childhood trauma can lead to lifelong struggles with mental health issues, such as post-traumatic stress disorder. The societal impact is just as severe. A generation of children is growing up knowing only war, which can perpetuate a cycle of violence that is difficult to break. Yet amidst this bleak picture, the spirit of these children shines through. They dream of playgrounds instead of battlefields, of schools instead of military bases. They hope for a future where they can just be children, playing, learning, and growing in peace. In the face of such adversity, the resilience of these children is a beacon of hope. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? The war between Hamas and Israel might give us an answer. This is not a war of equals, but a conflict ignited by decades of unresolved issues, powered by the volatile mix of politics, religion, and territorial claims. On one side, we have Hamas, who seized control of Gaza and turned it into a fortress. They have a strategy of embedding their military assets into civilian infrastructure, such as schools and hospitals. This makes them almost invisible, but also turns innocent civilians into human shields. On the other side, we have Israel, a formidable force that has been on the defensive since its creation. Israel's state-of-the-art Iron Dome defense system intercepts rockets mid-air, but it cannot completely prevent the damage and disruption caused by the constant threat of attacks. The international community is watching, torn between the need to protect civilians and the complexities of international law and politics. Diplomacy seems to be a paper shield against the rockets and the retaliation, the hatred and the fear. As the world watches with bated breath, the future of Gaza hangs in the balance. So what have we learned from the tale of Gaza? The path has been fraught, from Hamas's takeover to the human shields and child soldiers. The conflict with Israel continues, and the struggle is real. But remember, Gaza's story is not just about conflict and despair, but also about resilience and hope. It's a story that needs to be heard.